answer less questions than many of you in the room. This is just me sharing my experiences. If you have any questions that I can't answer, there are 2 Abunas in the room right now. So, yeah. So this is baby Mel Mel. I just thought I'd show you what I looked like before this time. So my history is growing up, as Abuna said at the end of the liturgy, I was an atheist, as is the rest of my entire family, save for one grandmother who's passed away. So growing up, my parents, just like you guys sort of, every Sunday and every day of the week, God was really a part of your lives. Sort of, not like atheism, but like it was almost the same, like just no God was just part of my life. So my family, from a very young age, my dad loved showing me science books, and he really wanted me to be able to achieve the higher education that he and my mother had not been able to achieve. So from a young age, it started, he would give me sort of history textbooks from his high school, which were very outdated, or he would buy me textbooks about nature, plants, animals, things like that. And I will show you, I think the next slide is pictures. Yeah, so this is the first textbook that my father bought me, How Nature Works. And so from a very young age, I loved science, I loved learning. I am in my last year of a Bachelor of Public Health, so the science is still really a part of my life. And one thing that this upbringing has taught me is that I always needed facts and evidence to believe things, because that's sort of the way that scientists think. So yes, I'm a Christian, which means I have received evidence that God is real, and I'll explain some of that to you all here. So let's go. Oh, so the seed was sown. So this is the part of the talk today where you'll hear about how someone sort of witnessed or ministered to me back in the day. So in my first year of university, I had a friend who was in my French class. And this friend and we sat next to each other and ended up having to work on group projects, because that's typically how school works. They just bunch you together with whoever you sit next to on the first day of class. So it was great. And then he studied for 1 year in Austria abroad. And I have family in Austria, but I've never been myself. So I asked this friend to share pictures with me when he returned. And after an entire year, he remembered and he showed me the pictures, and Austria is just as beautiful as you can imagine. So after a few months, this friend and I would just study after class together or whatever on campus. And then one day by the baseball fields, he asked me if I was religious. And before I was a Christian, I would say spiritual ? I believed that when you died, something happened. I didn't believe that you're dead, that's the end. But I didn't really know what that was. And I did believe that when you prayed, something heard you. I don't know if it was good vibes, karma, whatever. But any religion just didn't sort of seem to be my cup of tea. I found it really difficult to understand how people could give their lives to a person or a thing or whatever that you have never seen, you can't actually hear with your ears, see with your eyes, touch with your hands. And so I did have a lot of trouble grasping that understanding. So this friend gave me a crash course, Jesus. So it was about 5 minutes of basically the very basics of the Christian belief. And then this friend explained how God is not limited by time, whereas we are. And so I told him, I'm not going to believe in something unless I have evidence. And this friend told me that there was a way to get evidence that God was real. So he told me to go to my room that night and to at that point, I understood it as talking to myself, but it was prayer. So he told me to sit in my room and look up and say, hey, if you are who my friend says you are, I need you to show me. And that decision is the reason that I'm here today. So this is Science Cat. So there's a reason there's a method to my madness. I wanted to make sure that this wasn't a coincidence, because although I, at that time an atheist, thought it was kind of silly to talk to myself and expect an answer, my friend did seem pretty convinced that I would receive an answer. So I went home and I tried to think of a question or a sign that I could ask for that would not be a coincidence, so that when I received this sign, I knew it wasn't coincidence, it wasn't wishful thinking, it was God, that's it. So the sign is something very personal that I'm not comfortable sharing in front of this whole crowd, but I'll give an analogy that is my favorite thing in the entire world. So imagine that I asked God that night to bring me a 10-pack of chicken nuggets from McDonald's with honey mustard dipping sauce on a Monday night when I'm home alone. How am I going to get these nuggets without God? You know what I mean? So it was something very specific. So it was like the stars had to align for this to happen. I forget what the next... Oh no, I can't go to the next slide yet, it'll ruin it. So 3 days later, I was just living my atheist life, going to school, work, and whatever. And then, again, I was in another group project. And so we have this thing at UOIT called Blackboard. It's like our where all of our courses are, and you can communicate with students in your class. So I was assigned to a group project with a complete stranger. So I got her phone number and we were talking about the logistics behind one of our projects. And then out of the blue, we were just sort of chit-chatting as young girls often do. And she gave me the exact sign that I had asked for over the phone. And I didn't prompt her, I didn't say any sort of thing to elicit her giving me this sign. It was literally just... She paused and just blurted out the exact thing that I wanted to hear, like that I had asked God to hear. And I found out a few weeks later that this friend, a close friend of mine now, her name is Miriam, and she herself is Coptic. So that sort of will lead into why I chose Coptic Orthodoxy over another denomination. So this is, I don't know his name because I'm a little young, but that kid from Home Alone. So to be honest with you all, this was not at all what I was hoping for. Now I know that this is a huge blessing and one of the most important moments of my life, but imagine being a 19-year-old woman, like in the prime of not knowing what's going on in your life. You know what I mean? Like being a young person in university is already confusing, and now this happens. I was not excited. I at that point regretted, because I knew I opened up a can of worms and it was one of those like exploding cans and stuff would just keep coming out and I had no choice but to just let it happen. So now I know I'm truly blessed, and I feel so thankful that I made this decision to open up a line of prayer with God. But it was really scary. Imagine being an atheist, being sure that there is nothing, no one, nada, nothing's going on up there. And all of a sudden, you get the first sign from God that he's real. It's quite scary because at that point I didn't know about God's love for us and his forgiveness. And I thought, well, I really didn't know, didn't I? It's too late. It obviously wasn't. So let's see what's going on over here. Oh, Orion. So now I'm going to share with you guys some of the signs that I'm actually comfortable sharing. So Orion, as you can see, I think... Yes, okay, I never even checked that. Orion, as you can see, is a constellation. It is my favorite constellation since forever, but it's only visible in the winter. So in my second and third year of university, I used to work at a coffee time, and I worked from 5:30 in the morning until noon and then went straight to class because I was crazy. So walking to work in the winter at like 5 o'clock in the morning is not where like a 19-year-old wants to be. So I used to love looking at the stars, like quiet winter mornings. The snow sort of softens the sound, everything's quiet. And I loved looking up at the stars and seeing Orion. So there was about a week where it was quite cloudy, and I didn't get to see Orion once. So then one night I went to bed and I said a prayer to God. And I said, you know what? I know this isn't like a 911 emergency, but I would really like to see Orion. It would make me feel good. Like it would just make my day better. So I went to bed and then I woke up in the morning. I got a notification on my phone. Thunderstorms rolling in for that day. Whatever, I'm not going to see the stars. So I get ready for work. I step out of my door and I look up, and the whole sky is filled with clouds except for a circle right in front of me, and Orion was there. This was the very first sign that I received from God that showed me his loving nature. So before that, all of my signs were sort of like, just like making sure you're still there, right? And then he would give me a sign. But this was the first sign where I learned that God cared about Melissa, like he cared about me. He wanted me to have a good day. He didn't want, obviously he wants me to love him and follow him, but this sign really struck my heart as he was sort of showing me his love for me as an individual, which was quite special. Click. Missing reward. So as you know, I'm a young woman who is basically fused to her cell phone. So a few years ago, I was at Walmart shopping for Christmas presents for a bunch of my girlfriends. I had just bought, at that time, the newest iPhone was $600. And at that time, I was working minimum wage and paying for university by myself. So, like, broke university student is an understatement. So I gave myself like this one luxurious thing. I got the brand new iPhone, the best camera, bought a cute pink case. It was the best thing of my entire life. And so I'm walking through Walmart, and if anyone knows me, I forget everything. I forget names. My brain, it's like I'm Dory from Finding Nemo. I never have any idea what's going on. And I'm walking through Walmart, and then I realize I'd been there for 45 minutes. I don't know when the last time I saw my phone was. I don't know where it is. And I also I have a purse today, but I just carry my phone like this. I don't put it in a pocket or anything. Dangerous for me. So I realized that I lost my $600 phone, and if I don't find it, I don't have a phone anymore, and that was just unbearable for me. So I'm running around the store in hysterics trying to figure out where I left my phone. And then I remembered that this friend had told me that God is here for you, he will help you. So I honestly thought, oh, what the heck, I might as well try to ask God for help. What do I have to lose? And I did feel at that time, honestly, a little silly asking this question. So I stood there in the middle of Walmart and I said, listen, God, you know that I cannot afford another phone. I need your help. Like, I'm freaking out right now. Just help me find my phone. And then just as I was finishing my prayer, the intercom came on and said, there's a lost iPhone being returned to the returns desk. If it's yours, go and get it. And it was my phone. So I was very thankful that God helped me out that day. There are other signs that I have. I took the slide out for this one because I'm just wild, but I will still mention it. So God has been in my life for much longer than I have actually known him or accepted him. And it took a long time to sort of figure out. That's why I mentioned at the beginning that God loves us all, whether or not we know or accept him, which I think is just one of the most beautiful things. So I was telling a friend about this earlier. I have like a bone disease that doesn't affect me anymore. It only affects me when I'm growing. So if anyone knows sciencey things, which I'll explain, your bones are like, imagine a pencil, and they only grow at the ends. So stem cells are sort of like the blank slates. So your stem cells are in the very end of your bones, and they only grow from that point. But I have this really weird thing where like my stem cells on my last growth spurt took like a field trip and left that part and then grew under the main nerve running down my leg. And it caused me excruciating pain. So it was in my grade 8 year where I noticed quite significant pain. There was now a ping pong ball size lump next to my knee for no reason, and I was freaking out. So we went to the doctor, and then we went to this weird specialist guy. Honestly, it was a blur. And he basically said, I have three options. I could just live with the pain, which I could cut my leg off, or I could become chronically addicted to morphine for the rest of my life so that I wasn't feeling pain. For like a 14-year-old kid, none of that sounded like something I wanted to do, you know? So I decided, I'm keeping this leg. I don't want to take drugs, so I'll just live with it, I guess. And it was excruciating. For many years, it was quite painful. I played soccer my whole life. I had quite significant issues. Women's soccer is like women's rugby, basically, except for you kick the ball. It is such a physical sport, and like if I got a kick in the knee, my nerve would snap and my leg would be gone, but I was just kind of reckless and still played. And it was really painful, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if it's because I got like a little chunky or like what happened, but I don't feel any pain anymore. Like I guess the way that the nerve is situated has moved itself away from the bone. I don't even know the answer, but I really feel like God has sort of helped me with, like, what's the other explanation? Like, I have a diagnosed condition. I could barely walk for like a year, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm like, woo, my leg is fine. So I don't know, and that was even before high school. So that was very, very, very long before I came to know God. So now I'll share a bit of what God has done for me, which is everything, but I will just give some specifics here. Clicky. I'm really bad with this. I don't know what's happening. Please change. Okay. So now we're going to talk about mental health. Ooh, just kidding. It's not actually scary. Well, it is, but we'll make it. So I am a person who has diagnosed mental health issues, and I'm not it's as much a part of me as my hair. It's a part of my actions. It really does affect my life, and I'm very open about having these things because they're sort of scary, and sometimes it's worse when you're alone and you think that something's wrong with you. So I've had anxiety my entire life. It was really bad when I was in kindergarten. I used to be so scared to be away from my parents that I would just like barf all day, every day. I was constantly shaking and nauseous. It was physical anxiety that I would feel. And then growing up through the years, this continued, and obviously, like, I'm still here, I'm able to function, but there are times where I do experience anxiety. But one thing that has really helped me with that is just giving it to God. So my catchphrase is, Jesus, take the wheel. It's very difficult, and even now I don't always do this because it's Melissa, but excuse me, whenever I feel quite stressed, I just try to just give it to God. And I tell myself, you know, God didn't come down and die on the cross for me to have a horrible life. I'm going to go through some things, but he's going to make sure that at the end of the day, everything's okay. So that has really helped with my anxieties. Sometimes I feel anxious and I don't know why. It happened to me today, but you just keep pushing through it, and everything will be okay. And also, I was in an abusive relationship from grade 9 until grade 12. And that is a very crucial point in the development of self-esteem, knowing who you are as a person. Like, high school is a dangerous cesspool of drama. And then you add in someone who is supposed to be nice to you is not. So that created a lot of long-lasting effects. And I mentioned this because it really does affect me quite significantly to this day. I've developed a lot of not great things from it. But what I'm saying is that despite all of these things, God still loves me, and I still feel beautiful. I feel amazing. I feel his love. And the thing about mental health illness is that you can ask God for help. You know, God, you can't pray away mental health issues, just like you can't pray away diabetes. Of course, God can perform miracles. There's no doubt in that. But what I am sort of explaining to you guys is that God is able to help you. If I'm having a bad day or I'm feeling a lot of bad negative thoughts, I can say, you know what, God, you see me, you see my hurt, you know my struggle. Give me the tools to help myself. So you're never alone. God is always with you, and I don't always, it's hard to reach out, but I always try to remember that God is here for me, and He's helped me through a lot of difficult times. And then this is happiness. I'm sure, I don't know, there's a few of you in this room that I'm not really too familiar with, but I am a ray of sunshine. I just love love. I love being happy. I'm always giggling, mostly because I'm a little off, but it's fine. So because of what I have explained to you previously in the last sad slide, I had not experienced happiness, joy, in a decade. It was, I would laugh, I would joke around, but I didn't feel happy. And so when I started becoming a Christian, I had a good time. I enjoyed coming to church and learning about things, but I had still some reservations about my past life. And then I remember, once I had just given it to God and I said, you know what? I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't really understand who you are, but I know you're there. Jesus, take the wheel. After that point in my life, it was literally like mania. I was so happy, I would just cry. I was just feeling so good. And it was because of Christ that I was able to feel joy for the first time. Explaining it to people, if you've never had not everyone goes through things that I go through. Of course, we're all living our individual life. But if you can imagine, for almost 10 years, never feeling happy, always having, it's you're, rose-colored glasses, but Black Death, horrible colored glasses. Everything was, I was so dark, so angry, so tense, so full of hate. I thought horrible thoughts and I said horrible things to myself, and then all of a sudden I just felt so uncontrollably happy. So even when I'm having a bad day now, none of you knew me back then, but you'll notice I'm a different person. I truly feel God's love and His joy, and I know that not every day is going to be great, but there are greater things to come, and I just sort of plug away and wait till the end. But no, it's okay. We're living our best life. So I accepted Jesus and I decided, you know what, this whole God thing, I'm liking it. I think He's real. So I had decided that I was a Christian. But as all of you know, there's a lot of different flavors of Christianity. So now there was the hard part of figuring out which flavor I was going to eat for the rest of my life. Please click. Oh no. Road trip. So I live in Oshawa, which I don't take the highway because I don't want to risk my life every day I come to church. So I take Highway 7 all the way down. So it takes me 50 minutes to get here, driving the speed limit. Yeah, sometimes I get here a bit quicker. In Oshawa, I live in a place where within a 6-kilometer radius, there's 50 churches. No Coptic churches, of course, because that would be too convenient. But every other church you could possibly imagine in the entire world. So what I would do is I would just sort of show up at a church and sit and just see how it went, what's going on, how everything's, because back then I knew God was real, but I didn't know, I was still confused as to why there's all of these different types of churches doing the same thing. So I found myself at a Baptist church for about 6 months. Man, that was a good time. At that church, you know how when we take communion, we sing those worship songs? Basically, there's a live band at the front, and you sing songs for 45 minutes, listen to a sermon, you sing songs for 45 minutes, and you leave. And back then, that was just a hoot. I just had such a great time. I love singing, and people were dancing. It was just woo, go Jesus. It was just so fun. But I did feel I don't know, I just felt I was having fun, but I didn't feel like it was connecting me to God in the way that I wanted to be connected. So I moseyed around different churches, and it was the same thing. They were all great, and I had great varying experiences at all of them, but I hadn't found my home. So I think it was 2 years ago. My memory is failing me. So I probably 2 years ago, if I'm wrong, I warned you. There was an alpha course here, and it was in this room. An alpha, for those of you who don't know, it's like a course and it's non-denominational. So it's very basic. It explains Christianity, and I forget how many weeks it was, but it was quite long. And I am not shy, and I don't care if I ask questions that are weird for other people to ask. So I would sit at these big round tables, and we would have discussions about different things that we learned. And I would ask every question that I could think of, and I didn't even feel bad because I was just here to learn and find out more information. I was explaining that in my last talk. I don't know if it's like Egyptians or like just this church, but I just feel so welcome, so loved. Everyone hugs. There's always food. Pizza today is a great blessing. But I don't know, like I just felt really welcomed. I felt like, well, I'm very Caucasian, but like I'm kind of liking these Egyptians. I feel like we got some similar things going on here. So I was still going to the Baptist church, but every Tuesday, even after that Alpha course left, I would still come to this church because I had made some friends, and you guys were taking me under your wing, sort of teaching me about God, and it was good. So I attended my first liturgy after like 6 months. Newsflash, for a non-Coptic person, a liturgy is whack. I had no idea what was going on. Why are we standing and sitting at different times? What are these people in white? Like, why is there a symbol thing? And like, there was like this smoke spinny thing. Like, now obviously I know what all of this is, but you can imagine for a woman who has just sort of accepted God into her life, she's coming into this church and seeing all of these things, and she has no idea what's going on. But I'll tell you, I cried in my first liturgy, because although I had no idea what was going on, I felt in my heart at that point that I was home, in a very strange home, but home. So I sort of was flip-flopping between the two churches, and then I just decided, like, you know what? God wants me here, not my choice, I'm coming. So I have been a member of this church for probably a year and a half solid, but 2 years before that. And I was baptized on Lazarus Saturday this year. So my first communion was on Palm Sunday, and my parents came. You guys know how long Palm Sunday is? And I made my parents sit through the whole thing. It was so, because my parents, like before, they would hide the car keys from me. They didn't want me to go to church. Like, they were like real savage about the whole thing. And then they were like, you know what? Melissa seems to be more emotionally stable. She hasn't hurt anyone. She can just do this, it's fine. So I just sort of kept coming and stealing the car keys back, and we made it. So yeah, they are not Christian, but it meant a lot that they sat through like an 18-hour liturgy for me on my first communion. So, and then I made my boyfriend. So my boyfriend too, he's been coming here for quite some time. He's the man who looks exactly like me with a mustache. And he is becoming a young Copt himself, and he loves our church, although he is more shy than I am, so he likes to be quiet. But we were only dating for probably 2.5 months at that time, and it was only his second or third liturgy, and I made him stay all the way through the general funeral, and you know what? He made it, so he's allowed to stay. Okay, so SMSV. Imagine, that's what I saw the first time I came in. I don't know if you've ever seen a Baptist church. It's basically an auditorium. So this is like photo time with Mel Mel. So there's a blurry picture of me hugging my church dad, Abuna Bishoy. And then there's a not blurry picture of me getting baptized in the action. And then there's Tant Salwa right there in the corner. She's just my little sunshine. And then these are all of the people who attended my baptism. I wish there was more, but this is all that we could sort of squeeze into that very small, stuffy room. All of my friends, my boss, the two men that I work for, people from the church, my family, of course. It was just a really great day. Oh. And then there's me at Christmas with Abuna Bishoy. So Christmas time is really hard for me here. Yes, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ, but seeing everyone here during Christmas time with their families, eating the Christmas dinner downstairs, it was a rough day, but we made it through, and Abuna Bishoy, in his true Santa Claus fashion, made sure that I had a holly jolly Christmas. This is one of the last slides. Well, this is the last slide, but I'm making like an imaginary slide in my head because I feel like it. So I speak more than one language, and I think that learning Arabic would be something really fun. I've always loved Egypt far before I became a Coptic woman, but like more like ancient Egypt. I just love the pyramids and all of the statues, and I know like the family trees. Like I just love Egypt. So I've always wanted to go, but when I go to Egypt, I don't want to have a translator translating things to me. I want to know myself. And I am good at learning languages, but I knew that it was going to be extremely difficult to learn to read and write in Arabic. And also, this is the only all-English church. So for example, when I go to St. Mark's, I'll be sitting there singing in English, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what's going on anymore. So I am working with a private client as an educational assistant in the Durham Catholic District School Board. And it's through their continuing education center. So I picked up one of their booklets. I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll just flip through on my lunch break and see what's going on. And I found that they have a grade 9 and 10, a grade 11, and a grade 12 Arabic course. And it runs 4 hours a week from September to May. Obviously, I missed this years, but I was very interested, so I talked to the program coordinator there, and low-key, it's free. So if anyone here needs to buff up their Arabic, it's free. It's in Ajax. It's not even in Oshawa. And so I found a way for free to learn to read and write, and then I have an entire church full of people who can help me practice and things like that. So come September, be ready, because I'm gonna need you. Lessons I have learned. Okay, so this is a lesson that I am going to give all of you because I feel like we all, even me, girl, I'm I'm 21 now, but like we all have our moments. So this is Rembrandt's picture or painting depicting the prodigal son. So in this, there are three main characters. There is the father, there is the sinning son, and then there's the non-sinning son. So each one of these characters has very specific traits. So the father is very forgiving, loving, accepting. The son who had sinned is full of repentance. He's sorry. He's asking for forgiveness. And then there's the older non-sinning son, and he's sort of entitled, upset, angry. So I titled this part, Who Am I Today? So I first heard about this story during my first church retreat, which with SMSV, like way back in the day. And I really, this story resonated with me. So I myself, at any given moment, can be all three of these people that you see up here. Everyone in this audience, at some point or another, can be all three of the people that you see up there. And I think it's important to make sure that you are aware of this. So I have experienced times where being a new Bebe Christian, people have treated me, they have been acting like the older son. They've been acting like the angry, upset, why are you here? You don't belong here, son. I have also had people treat me like the father. 99% of people have been very welcoming of me. And I know that it's not me. Everyone has their own days, everyone has whatever going on. But I think it's important to remember that, especially if there's a new Christian in the room or even a non-Christian in the room, if you act like each of these three different characters, you will elicit a different response from them. Imagine if I was with that friend and he asked me if I was a Christian and I said no. Imagine if he treated me like that older son. Would I be here today? Of course not, you know? And that's why I love SMSV, because we're all in this together. Although I do appreciate like the Egyptian food that we get to eat, so just saying. So the importance of prayer. So I would not be here if it wasn't for prayer. Prayer is something that is very important to me, and I know it's very important to all of you. It's one of the biggest gifts that we've been given. It's a way to ask for help, to thank God for giving help, to hang out and have a chat, just sort of get things off of our chest. So I would always say to you guys, like, just keep that open communication. God doesn't care how you say it. He doesn't care if you're all like fancy words or whatever, or you're just sending him a quick message like a text or whatever. He just wants you to talk to him and keep him involved in your life. And I don't really know what the next slide is. It might be the end. Oh, yeah, when I said it was the end before, I forgot that I added other slides. It was not the end. So, if you guys would like to ask questions, I would love to answer a million. Take this the right way. No question is too personal, but like don't mess it up. But like if you can ask me a question, don't think that you're gonna make me upset or make me feel weird. Like last time I opened it up to questions, I had like a mini mental breakdown at the front of the stage. We just kept going, everything was fine. So I would love to answer questions if someone has one. Yes, would you like the microphone? Yeah, so the question was, how important to me is reading the Bible? So the Bible is sort of like where I got the meat and potatoes of Christianity. So my relationship with God is 110%, but I didn't really know who he was, what he has done, is doing, you know? So the Bible is sort of where especially the Gospels were the first thing that I read, because I believed in Jesus, but I didn't know who he was. So that was a great way for me to sort of get to know him. And then reading the Bible itself, I honestly have not read every single word of the Bible yet. That's a big book. And I sort of reread different parts that I like more than others, if we're being really honest. But the Bible is a good way for all of us to remind us of what God has done, what he's doing, who he is, what he wants from us, what he gives us, what he takes from us, things like that. So I'd say the Bible is really important. And two, it can sort of guide you in prayer. It can remind you, Abuna Bishoy gave me, I forget what it's called, it's purple, but it's this Bible where at the beginning of every book, it explains who wrote it, when they wrote it, where they wrote it, the cultural norms of the time. I think things like that as well are really important to know the context of when things were written. Yes. Any other questions? Would you like the microphone? Okay. Yeah, so the question was, how did baptism feel? As an adult, it was like my wedding day because I was able to remember it all. And I wore white. And no one else wore white, thankfully. I was a little concerned. And I got to wear a tunya, and it was like pink and purple. So, anyways, so baptism, it was a good time. But also very exhausted that day. So in baptism, you sort of receive the Holy Spirit as like a permanent resident in you. But he had sort of been like a renter. He would visit me and guide me here, of course. So baptism, it was sort of a way of me showing God, like, this is really it. Like, it's like when you get married. Like, once you're baptized, you can't unbaptize yourself, and of course you can change your beliefs and do whatever, but for me, this was me saying, I am an adult. I am making the decision as an informed woman who had taken like 3 months of Coptic school on Sunday. This is where I'm going to be. So my baptism was sort of a great way for me to remind myself of how important this step was in my life, of how important God is in my life. There were a lot of people, I lost a lot of friends and some family drama when I decided to be a Christian, and this was one way where I really showed everyone, like, I'm serious. Joke all you want, say what you want. I love me some Jesus, and I will tell you to your face. So my baptism, it was, I wish it was longer. It was like a little mini liturgy. It was very long, but I wish that day just lasted forever. It was just a day full of love. There was a lot of non-Christians who came and sort of saw the beauty of our church and things like that. It was just fun. I had a hoot. I gave a tour of the church, and imagine that. You guys should come on a tour with me one day, even though you come here. It's really fun. I'm like a comedian. So, any other question? Not even one other question? What about my favorite ice cream? Any guesses? It's chocolate. Okay, well, one last thing. I would like to remind everyone that the vote is tomorrow. So please do that. Just vote. It's very important. Anyway, this is the end. Thank you. Vote.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for sharing. I'm sure if you guys have any questions other than her favorite ice cream, she's always going to be around. God bless you guys. And yes, I forgot to make the announcement inside the church. We do need to vote. Don't forget to vote if you're of age. Everyone's of age here. Yes. Whatever. Vote. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week, God willing. Any announcements? No? If you're not on the list, please see Christine. No, I thought it was Christina for a second, but it's not. See Christine. If you're not on the mailing list, we send out one email for OnRoute a week. One and not more than one.